One of the major actors during elections in Nigeria is the party agents. The agents are the eyes of the political parties at all the polling units. They take account of what happens during the elections and report to their parties. The parties are the ones who usually nominate them and submit their names to the Independent National Electoral Commission. Ahead of the 2023 general elections, INEC has released a list of 1,574,301 party agents nominated by the 18 registered political parties for the 2023 general elections. From the list, the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, has the highest number of polling agents of 176,588, followed by the ruling All Progressive Congress, APC, with 176,233. New Nigeria People's Party, NNPP, has 176,200, and the Labour Party, LP, with 134,874. All the political parties also nominated a total of 68,057 collation agents and 27 agents for the National Collation Center. Now, what are the roles of these agents? What are the roles the agents will be playing at the polling units on the days of election? Do they really understand their roles? And how have they their conduct affected the electoral process in the past? This will be the focus of Nigeria today. I am your carrier, Clinton. Welcome to the program. With me is a legal practitioner, an election expert and former director with INEC, Oluwole Osaze Uzi. Nice to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Good evening.
Also, we have a director with Democracy and Governance, Connected Development Code, Emmanuel Njoko. Good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
I'll start with you, Oluwole. Of course, elections will only take place in 176,606 polling units across the country. I will be having over 1.5 million party agents. Apart from the other functions I've mentioned in during the introduction, beyond that, what other functions will these agents be performing during this election period?
Thank you. The Electoral Act allows political parties participating in election and candidates to appoint, to go to the polling unit themselves, and collection centers themselves, or to do so by proxy. In other words, to do so by accredited agents who are there. The Act doesn't spell out their specific duties, so it gives them certain roles, but doesn't reel out all the duties and responsibilities of the party agents. That comes from the regulations, the guidelines, and also from convention and practice. Basically, the agent is to be the eyes and the ears of the candidate and of the political party sponsoring him or her at the election. So everything the agent can do, his representative or her representative, the polling agent, the party agent, now does that on his or her behalf in the polling unit and in the collation center at every point where of the process they're entitled to be there. So right from the point of distribution of materials, sensitive materials, from the particular location, maybe the central bank, up to the INEC office, and from the INEC office to the local government, state office to the local government office, from the local government office to the RAC centers, the centers where they stay overnight before deployment to the polling unit on election day. They are entitled to monitor the whole process. It's all part of the transparency, throwing light into a process. It's all part of the transparency of the process to ensure that everything is in accordance with the rules, the regulations, and the laws, just being the eyes and the ears of his political party. So that is their primary role. And there are other little things, not little, important roles they play, in the sense that, for example, if there's equality of votes, or they can ask for a recount of votes when he's not satisfied with the sorting and the counting. So he can make a protest, or he can complain, and then the presiding officer at the polling unit has a duty, for example, to when he asks for a recount, or once at least, to recount the votes, to sort the votes properly and to recount the votes. And in practice, you see, for example, when your correspondents go out, that's in the past, that the agents around the polling unit officer, the presiding officer, and in sorting, he brings out each ballot paper, looks at it. Is this a good ballot? Does it stay within the box? Does it clearly indicate the choice of the voter? So these are the kind of things. So he's a watchman, as it were, a watchwoman, as it were, to ensure that those things are complied with. If there's a dispute, they look at it, everybody looks at it, and they decide. So it's a right that the candidate and the political party sponsoring has over as not superintending, but observing. And that's the difference. In electoral law practice, observer is different from a monitor. Observe is to sit down to look, and if there's anything going wrong, to point it out, and it's for the presiding officer or the returning officer or the collation officer to decide that, yes, I uphold the objection, I uphold your points, and I will do it this way, I'll do it that way. So these are just one of the numerous roles that they play. If there are any issues, for example, with the beavers, he is supposed to be trained to look at what it's supposed to do. If things are going wrong, if, for example, the presiding officer does not upload results when it's supposed to upload, he can tell him, oh, I thought it was supposed to be uploaded. So these are some of the issues. He guides, aids, and observes the whole process to ensure that the process complies with the guidelines.
Yeah, so earlier when you were talking, you talked about observing and monitoring. What's the difference, actually?
In terms of, I'm sure in a normal lexicon, a normal dictionary, you probably won't see much of a difference. But in election processes and procedures, a monitor can interfere in the process, can correct when something is going wrong.
Immediately?
Immediately, yes, that's it. It's a troubleshooter. In Nigeria, only INEC appoints monitors. It's staff who go out on election day to ensure that things are done properly. An observer, whether it's an accredited observer, represents CSO, the media, no other person, a voter, no other person has a right to correct. You can make an observation, you observe, and most other observers, you have to keep your observations to yourself. You're not able to interfere in the process. A monitor can interfere in the process.
Okay, thank you very much. Emmanuel, he's talked about a lot of things that these party agents do, you know. And I know in the past you have observed elections, and yes, and you have seen a lot of things that they do. They are not supposed to, do, or probably deviate from what their functions are. So, can you tell us some of your observation in the past and how, this can be averted this time around?
Yeah, thank you. So to add to what he has said, based on international best practice on election day, there are these different groups of people who the INEC, the election management body, grants full access to a polling unit. Apart from the INEC ad hoc staff who are on ground, then the security personnel, then you have the accredited observers who, both local and international, which I am. Then you have the media organizations who are also accredited by INEC. Then the last and the most, one of the very important one is also political party agents. He has said it very clearly. Political party agents are the representatives of the political parties and the candidates in a polling unit. But one of the biggest problems we'll see when we go to the field is that the political party agents assume powers that they do not have. And this is primarily because of the kind of training they get. Training or lack of training that they have to come to the polling unit. For you to be a very good political party agent, first of all, you need to have been trained on the election day procedures and the election day processes. So you need to first of all understand what the your expectation in the polling unit on election day. You need to understand the procedures. You need to also understand your powers, like he said, and that's very important to differentiate between an observer and a monitor. If you are not INEC, so that's a very common mistake both observers and people, even media, do. It's only INEC that is the monitor, because they are the only ones that have the powers to interfere in the process, in the election day process. But as an observer, as a media, as a party agent, you do not have the powers to interfere. You do not even have the right to become confrontational in polling units. We've seen party agents become confrontational and raise voices and try to constitute nuisance in the polling unit. You do not have such rights. As a matter of fact, the presiding officer of representing INEC in a polling unit has the powers to walk you out of the polling unit as an observer, as a polling party agent. If you constitute nuisance, if there is an issue that you think which is your duty to observe, to ensure that the whole process is followed as stated and stipulated by the Electoral Act. If there is anything you feel that is going wrong, whether it's fraud, election offense, and sometimes, like I understand, you see party agents, a little mistake from the INEC ad hoc staff, you see they flare up and cause a lot of trouble. And time and again, we've realized that, yeah, because INEC also trained this ad hoc staff, sometimes they are not called INEC staff. They are trained, like they've just been trained. When some of them make these mistakes, sometimes it's honest, sincere mistakes. It doesn't really in any way mean that they are trying to manipulate the process. But you see party agents, cause a lot of trouble in the polling units. As a party agent, if you feel something is not going right, you should politely call the attention of the INEC officials there so that they get the attention to address the issue. If they do not even address the issue, the best you can do is to take a report and petition of both party, the INEC ad hoc staff there. And another thing I see party agents do, before I forget. So you go to polling units, you see some party agents wearing T-shirts, branding their political party slogans or logos, or they are showcasing their brands. It is absolutely wrong. But we'll see this thing across most polling units, especially in rural areas. A party agent coming to a polling unit is only supposed to wear the INEC tag provided by INEC that shows your name and then provides your details with your passport. That is the only thing a party agent is supposed to have. But you see some party agents come to polling units and they are adorning their party uniforms, and a party agent as well. So I've been to a polling unit where you see the big man in the area, call it ward, or the big man that is either running for office or who's really running for office. You see them come to a polling unit and they call more like a meeting of all the party agents to one side. And if you watch from where you are closely, you realize that they exchange money. They give these party agents money. You are there to represent your own party. But this whole thing comes from the point of a bigger problem, which I see as the kind of transactional politics that we do. Now let me say this. As we head to the election in the next 2 days, we have 18 political parties that are running for presidency, and I think 17 candidates that are running for presidency. It will shock you that there is a transaction in, well, not everybody, but there is this transaction that we understand, that we've observed in the field, that happens before election day. You come to a particular polling unit, you see 10 different political party agents. But you'll be shocked to realize that out of that 10, 6 of those party agents are working for one political party. So that makes it 7 political party agents of different political parties working for one candidate or one party. So we understand that at the point before election, sometimes some of the people who have declared to be running for office at the level of presidency end up, without publicly endorsing, but end up collapsing their whole party agents' cards to the bigger political parties who are running for office at a price, at a fee. So when you come there, you see a lot of things that are not supposed to be. But like I said, the major concern and the major challenge with political party agents is, first of all, they are not trained properly. They just give them tags, they put up their names at the last hours, and there's one part of party agents identification that...
I will stop you right there to bring Mr. Oluwole in. Now, he's talked about training or lack of training on the part of the party agents. So is there any kind of orientation or training or whatever you call it to educate these party agents, or are they just left at the mercy of the political parties to do, to perform these functions?
Okay, thank you. Regularly, the Commission hosts political parties. It has discussions with political parties. It explains processes. It consults them, even sometimes before formulation of policies. It consults them, explains things to them, gives them copies of the draft guidelines, get their inputs, and then before it codifies, before it makes these things proper regulations and guidelines. So at every stage of the process, the Commission engages the political parties. And there's a department in the Commission that actually assists political parties, train them in all aspects of the process, be it financial reporting, how to fill their forms, the books to keep for their finance and their accounts, and also, as much as it's possible, does a kind of train the trainers. You cannot train 100,000, 1.something million party agents. So you train core people, you let the relevant authorities within the political parties know this, and then tell them their duties, their expectations, like a code of conduct of what is expected of them, tells the political parties. Now, it is the duty of the political parties to now cascade that, to now go and train all the party agents, either at ward level, at local government or state level. It's now their duty. Because apart from the functions and responsibilities we outlined, a very critical function is that they sign result sheets. If a party is represented in the way, he's entitled to sign and collect a copy of the result sheets. And don't forget, the polling unit result sheets are the building blocks of the election. It is the summary, the total of the aggregate of all polling unit results that you use in declaring the results. So that shows the critical role they play. As we have all agreed, the eyes and the ears, they now have to ensure that the first thing is that they know about the processes, they know about the practices, what is right, what is wrong, and what is expected of them. So as I gave you an example of sorting and counting of ballots, for example, their duties to say, no, please, we have to count this again. I think you made a mistake when you're counting. That's why it's almost so, it seems so elementary when presiding officers counting. They'll say, everybody says, yes, okay. They say one, everybody says 1, 2, 2. It's so that everybody sees and follows the process, not just the party agents, but any other person there. But you must be accredited. And Edward said something earlier on about a few hours. No, the law requires them to at least 14 days before the election to submit the names and photographs, phone numbers of each party agent. You must be accredited, as I said. So each polling unit, the presiding officer has a list of all those who have been accredited. If you're not accredited, then you're not an official agent. You cannot speak, you cannot do anything, you cannot carry out the duties of a party agent.
Okay, now he has mentioned a lot of things that are not supposed to be, that are seen usually at the polling units, you know, by some of these, he mentioned they constitute a nuisance at the polling units. Are there kind of sanctions, or is there any way to, any punitive measure given to these agents on the spot?
The sanction is that you can be walked out of the polling unit. You are there to represent an interest. But if you go beyond your bounds, the presiding officer has incredible powers in that regard to walk you out. And if you consider more of a nuisance, then you can be arrested for disrupting the process.
Okay.
You can be arrested, but that is something that you direct. INEC cannot arrest, so you have to tell the security agent who will arrest you and probably take you away. That's the architecture, the legal architecture for it.
Okay. Now, Emmanuel, from the list, we saw the People's Democratic Party having the highest number of party agents, and of course, with this kind of you know, margin, the difference in some political parties have less than, some have higher. Would this be how significant is this in this election process?
Yeah, in as much as it is very significant to have your party agents, like we said, the representative of the political party in every polling unit is important. But let's also know that if in any polling unit, the ad hoc INEC staff comes to the polling unit and there is no party agent at that place, election will go on. So it is not mandatory that there has to be a party agent for election to go on. If there is no party agent, election will continue. But I feel that if there are polling units where political parties do not have their party agents in that place, it is to their disadvantage. Because like we've said, you are not there. Of course, you can't be there. But you need to have someone who is there to check. And it's important because sometimes in polling units, you see, before they're able to, well, that was in the past. I don't see that happening in this election because of the deployment of technology and the whole Electoral 2022, which has limited all the shenanigans of the past. Now, typically, in a polling unit before now, you will see that before they're able to do the usual manual multiple accreditation for people that are not there and do multiple thumb printing by very few persons, there's always this collusion. So if you are not there, they will agree and do it. But if you are there to represent your political party, that will be a problem, and that is your role, to be a watchdog over the process. And that way they will not be able to manipulate the process. If there is a collusion and the people in that area decide to field underage voters, it is actually your duty as a party agent to call out the people, who any person you suspect to be underage who has filed to vote. It is your duty as a party agent to call the INEC officials on ground to say, this person or these people are underage and not supposed to vote. So if you are not there, who will speak for you? So I think it's an advantage for political parties that have party agents across board, and a disadvantage for those that have less.
Okay. Now, you mentioned some of the major, or one of the major reasons why these party agents are there are to sign the election result. Yes. What if they refuse to sign the election result for any reason? Will this affect the outcome of the election?
No, it doesn't affect the validity of the result of that polling unit.
Okay.
But if he feels very strongly and he has good grounds or good reasons, and if there's malfeasance, if there's something's wrong, there's a form 40G that the presiding officer is supposed to fill. He's to ensure that he fills it. But if he doesn't fill it, he also writes his own report and reports to his political party. And these days, all political parties or the major political parties have their own situation rooms. So when things are going awry, they report back to their situation room. They're even by law allowed to even record things that happen, record the movement of materials, for example. That's one of the innovations of the new Electoral Act. So they can upload these videos. You can either report to their coordinator, who's not there, but who will now escalate from the situation room, escalate it to the Inex Citizens Contact Center, where the chairman, the members of the commission are there, or the resident electoral commissioner in the state, or you can escalate to his own situation room and they take it up to their collation officer. So when it comes to collation, for example, let's say there's overvoting. When it comes to collation, the collation officer, who is also, will not be, is like the presiding officer in the unit, but he's in charge of the collation center. The party agent at the collation center will now take that up and say, in unit so and so, this happened, that happened, there's overvoting. Please count the number of ballots and check the beavers and see whether the number of credited people, if it exists, and the collation officer, the returning officer, has a right to uphold that objection and overrule the presiding officer and decide. The returning officer has the final say about what are valid votes or not valid votes.
Okay. Now, Emmanuel, you've ruled out a lot of things and misbehaviors of the party agents. Now, what do you think, now in your own observation, what do you think that INEC should do, or they are not doing, they ought to do, that will make these party agents, desist from certain kind of behaviors in the polling, in fact, during the election, that will make us have a very peaceful, credible, free, fair election?
One, I think, let me say this first of all. There is a law or a rule on INEC, INEC policy, and I would like Mr. Ozi to also, talk about this, that says that a party agent should not and must not be someone who works with the federal government civil service, in state government civil service, local government or councils, government. You must not be a public servant, literally. So by doing that, you are limiting the qualification and also the character of the persons, because typically, you think it's okay for INEC to have professors and university deans and all of that to become your returning officers, but you think it's okay for political parties to hire people who typically are not in the proper civil service and public service across the country. That reduces the opportunities of people who typically would have performed, who typically understand, who have something to lose. Because so when someone who works in a federal civil service is deployed as a party agent, of course the person is a Nigerian, I think the person has the right to be a party agent. But when you deploy someone who works in a federal ministry, that person has something to lose. It's not the same thing with when you deploy someone who literally has no job. The person can do anything and get away with it. So I think going forward, as a bit of reform, I don't know the reasons behind that, but I will appeal and advise that INEC should find a way to adjust that policy or that
It's an electoral act, it's not a policy.
Or it's even an electoral act, yes. To adjust that to accommodate people who are working in universities, who are public servants, to be able to participate as party agents.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, and that's it on Nigeria today. Thanks to election expert and former director with INEC, Uluwole Osazeuzi, for your insight. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Also, Director with Democracy and Governance Connected Development Code, Emmanuel Njoku, we do appreciate you for coming and your insight.
Thank you very much for having me.
And to our viewer, let's keep doing this together. Thank you very much for always being there. Don't forget, Nigeria Today airs weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can watch these and other episodes on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. Once again, thank you for watching. I am your carrier, Clinton. Goodbye.